Hold on a second. No one graduates until Security Guy Radio says so.
Welcome to an explosive version of Security Guy Radio with Chuck, IED Harold, and Paul.
Tally-ho, Bristow.
Continuing our series of debates with Webster University, debate number 2. I suppose you're wondering why I used the word explosive. By the way, Mr. Bryan, do you see my little exclusive laser pointer here?
I don't. Ah, there it is.
Yes, see, I'll be using this when there's technical difficulties, such as I cannot hear myself talking to my headphones.
That is the ignore Chuck light.
And it could explode if you don't get it right.
That's right. This is a laser. There could be a missile-guided...
I will divert my attention elsewhere if you keep
Could be a smart bomb on the end of this. Again, funny I should mention explosive version and smart bombs, because we just so happen today to be talking with Webster University about suspicious packages and bomb threats procedures. So this will be the topic to discuss today, which we've had tons of experiences and stories with.
An incendiary.
Oh, unbelievable. It is a problem, and they have a very interesting proposal on paper here we're going to talk about. But first, we're going to say hi to Mr. Chris Silva, the professor at Webster University, who started this class for us. How you doing, Chris?
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
How was the last show? It was good, right?
It was great.
I got some good feedback on it.
Lots of good feedback.
Yeah.
Participants enjoyed themselves.
Yeah, good.
Administration loved what we're doing.
All right.
Good.
Yeah.
So last week we talked briefly about the program and what you guys do locally, and we started touching on what you might do in different areas of the country. Are there similar programs? Maybe not a radio show, right? But what might somebody in another part of the world be doing with security? Is there a different course in Europe because of bomb threats, for example, where it's much more of a problem than it is here?
I can only speculate, but I would say this, that we've been identified as having some pretty breakout sort of methodologies locally. In our case, Security Guy Radio, and the same as taking it outside the classroom and into industry, and being able to share not only what we bring to the table, which is the ability to research subjects at a extremely low cost, i.e. none, and
yes, like this show,
that.
None. Interesting, you should say that.
But we've been able to share those research results from students, grad students, with industry, and give them a real big bang for their buck in exchange for the overview of the papers, the research materials, and lends relevancy to what the students are studying, because it's a problem that we're researching.
So I've been looking for a real job besides my radio show for about a year now, I suppose. And I've probably put in 400 applications, literally, right? So I look at a lot of applications. And then when I was hiring, I looked at a lot of resumes. Yeah. And I don't think I've seen a master's degree master's degree in security administration. Who are getting hired with these degrees, and what fields are they going into? I think it's very interesting.
I can tell you that a friend, a former student and mentee of mine, has gone up to Seattle with this degree and is working at a prominent aircraft manufacturer up there.
I wonder which one that would be.
and doing quite
Not
well.
Cox Airplanes, is it?
I get feedback from students all over the nation, not necessarily locally, but everywhere, that they're finding people who value what they're taking away and putting that to work in a range of industries.
So distinguish the master's degree from, let's say, CPP, right? So that's a certificate through ASAS, we know that, right? But does one have more weight, different weight? Everybody's always asking for CPP. What's the other ones, Paul, the other acronyms?
PSP, PCI.
Yeah.
So I'd say that the main difference between the degree and the CPP is probably the fact that the CPP necessarily mandates some experience, some exposure. A few, I want to say 7 years is what ASIS requires in order to even apply for that.
You've had to have 7 years prior security.
In management.
In management.
Oh,
correct.
before you apply. Okay, interesting.
And, the degree looks for a different audience, a different membership. In other words, folks who don't necessarily have that background but are ready to start, in this case, in many cases, coming in from a different career field altogether.
Well, you'll find a lot of people in the guard business that do not have a college degree.
Sure.
So as is gives them an opportunity to get some kind of certification. And then on the other hand, you have to have a bachelor's to get a master's. So you have college-educated folks continue with that type. And, one is a practical life experience and one is knowledge-based with other refinements. So it's very
Chris, how many people
interesting.
have you actually had pass, get a degree at this point, to this date?
Last year, I had come to the number 300.
Oh, okay.
Now, this is cumulative since you started teaching 4 years ago?
7 years ago.
7 years, okay.
And,
right.
yeah, right.
And that's just at your university location in El Segundo and your course. But I suppose that's multiplied times
150, yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Nice.
a lot of people.
Good.
It really is. Now, I wouldn't say that every one of those obtained the degree. However, they did take at least one of my courses.
Oh, so your course might be part of another degree pursuit or just an elective or something?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
So do we know how many actual master's degrees Webster issues every year?
I don't.
In that
I don't
field?
have that number this time.
You better have it next week. So
There
I'm
you
going to
go.
grill you. All right. It's a good thing to know. I'm just
Yeah,
curious,
Sure.
I think I should get a degree myself, don't you think? I should do something. So the radio show's not working. I better do something. All right. Anything else you want to give us an update on? Did our new victims here, candidates, students, did they cheat and watch other shows so they're more prepared now? They did. Okay. I figured as much.
You got to hand it to their intelligence gathering.
They did some research
Yeah.
at Security Guy Radio on YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and now Instagram, by the way.
Yes.
See, I can't say all 5 of those in a row. I'm going to forget them. We'll try.
We're just exploding all over the place.
We are exploding all over the place in a very messy way. All right, well, let's get into this, Chris. And feel free to jump in. And we're going to have to share the microphone with one of our guests there. Put it in the middle, then we'll kind of jump in. All right, so today we're going to talk about this white paper, Suspicious Package. I can't even say it. Suspicious Packages That Don't Look Right in Bomb Threat Procedures, written by Jeremy Hall and Eric Mercado, Webster University. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Why'd you pick this topic?
Well, I kind of initiated the topic myself with some of the background that I had, and Eric jumped on board. It's something that we see on TV. It's something that we see in the news, whether it's with security guards or not. The explosion in Madrid in 2004.
Yep.
Oklahoma City. You can sit here and name them all night. So it was something that I'm passionate about, that I'm kind of still in that field, and it's something that we decided to try to expand on and discuss it openly for our presentation.
So, Jeremy, what service do you come from?
I was in the Marine Corps. I spent 8 years.
Oh, Marine. We had Air Force and Navy last week.
Is that Royal Marine or?
That's the U.S. Marine.
Oh, okay.
A what Marine? What'd you say?
A Royal Marine.
Dude, don't insult a Marine inside the studio. This is confined space. Are you?
Wasn't that the original Marines?
you're-
Right?
well,
Royal Marines.
Well, that's not a bad point, I must say. All right. And thank you for your service, by the way.
Thank you.
Where were you stationed? What'd you do?
I was a military police officer and a K9
Oh, good for
handler.
you.
K9 handler.
Oh, cool. So, did you use bomb sniffing dogs?
Yes, sir.
Excellent. We're going to talk about that.
Awesome.
We're going to talk about that.
Thank
Very
you.
good. And Mr. Eric Mercado,
Yes,
welcome
sir.
to the show.
Thank you.
Come a little closer to the mic or pull that. There you go.
Okay.
So, what was your service? What branch?
United States Air Force.
Air Force again. Okay, excellent. And what did you do in the Air Force?
I was an aircraft mechanic and I was a
Oh,
space
boy.
operator also.
Important job. How long did you do that?
I was in the Air Force for 27 years.
All these people coming out of the service look like they haven't been in there 25
Oh,
years.
no.
It's amazing.
Yeah, they must look
He looks
after you.
younger than me.
Yeah.
My white hair doesn't help. Well, good. I'm very proud of you guys. I didn't go in the service like I started on my last show.
Does that mean the police force is more stressful or what?
Well, all my uncles, brothers going way back were Navy. And my one uncle on my mom's side was Air Force. He flew the failsafe mission from England. Got in a plane in 1956 and started flying to Russia every morning, then turned around unless they said drop the bomb. Then he was in the astronaut program. But the reason I didn't go in is because I would have been court-martialed the first day telling somebody to go piss off, don't tell me what to do. So I know my limitations and went to the police office where the police department, you can say piss off to somebody and then your POA representative can protect you a little bit. So either way, I haven't had sole success in either area, but I do respect people that can do that. I think it's marvelous. And of course, we wouldn't be here if we didn't have that. So, all right, so let's get into this. We have a lot of good questions for you. So you start your premise by saying that September 11th, like you said, prompted this. And it became a big problem after 9/11. Paul and I were at Fox, and I remember that day that happened. I was driving the kids to school, and this comes on the radio, and Kim called me up and says, "Hey, you know what just happened?" And I said, "Wow." And then, a pack of gum we thought was suspicious for about a year and a half. It was.
But it only became a problem in the United States after 9/11. It's been a problem everywhere.
A problem everywhere
for a
before
long
that.
time before that.
That's right.
Maybe.
That's right. And we hadn't had that experience. So now, fast forward from 9/11, now we have IEDs and all kinds of other sophisticated drones, which are basically Cox airplanes that I had when I was a kid. Now they're called drones, but you could put something on that and fly it around. So that's the potential is great. So in your paper, you are kind of involving security into this a lot, as far as making security officers a role to detect, deter, report. Speak to me about that, and what's your theories on that?
Well, I think just along the lines as a law enforcement officer, security officer is going to have roles and responsibilities in a building, at the airport, wherever they may be. So I think they're the front line of seeing something out of the ordinary. They're in the area every day. They know what shouldn't be there. If you see a baby stroller in a chemical plant, probably a little bit out of place. So they're going to be your first line of defense as far as seeing a threat, reporting the threat, and then reporting that up to chain of command, whether it be their supervisor, their chief security officer, whatever that may be at that time.
Do you think the security field lacks this now, that component?
I would question whether it lacks the training for what to look for, what constitutes suspicious compared to unattended, how you would handle that. I would hope that there's policies and procedures in place as far as what to do once you find it, who to call, different protocols for that, policies and procedures in place.
Paul, what say you?
Well, I would say, is it just the security profession that needs that training? Because if you look at, it was a chap in New York that left the vehicle in
Times Square, right?
Now that vehicle had sat there for the whole weekend, and I've got to tell you, more police officers than security personnel would walk past that vehicle, and that would never ever have happened in London. Okay,
that's right.
That would have been there for 5 minutes, and then it would have been gone. So I don't think it's we talk about security, but I think it's still all professions in the US and the public, we are still not focused on this issue. I mean, it's just not the security field.
It hasn't happened yet, really.
And I'd just like to add that, this is an evolving threat. And to identify, bomb threats as one thing today on Tuesday is going to be something completely different 30 days from now. So keeping abreast of that is where the knowledge of someone who remains current comes into value.
Eric, do you think we're trying to define it as identifying suspicious packages and bomb threats and bomb threat procedures, but really, in my mind, it comes down to observe and report. This is another component of observe. I can't speak today. What the?
No.
Observe and report's another component, right? My experience is if we try to get into too much minutia with guards and give them too many things to do and think and checklists, they tend to fail. Anybody really. I mean, you can remember 3 things and then you're kind of like, what'd you say? So, in your opinion, do you think if we made this a concept that we need to be more aware of what is suspicious in general, we would gather those packages as part of this, or do you think we need really specific training on the bomb stuff?
I think awareness is in general is a good thing because it will allow people to see when things are out of place, maybe not in the right place, and that general awareness is going to be a catalyst to help for bomb threats also, so that people can be aware and be ready for that situation.
But is it the security guard's responsibility solely to make that judgment call? Perhaps he identifies something and decides not to make the call. Well, I know it looks like a bomb, but it probably isn't a bomb, so I'm just going to go back to lunch and not worry about it. And if we put that much responsibility on that security officer, like in what Paul said, don't involve floor wardens, the guy that runs the division, and all the people to be aware, I think it's possible we could miss something. I mean, it's
I think you're right. The security guards, there should be some kind of something in place to where if he thinks it's suspicious, or if he, I know what you're saying is you don't expect him to make the call being a security guard, but
it's got to be an absolute procedure that says you're not going to decide whether to report it. you're just going to report it. Then we need to go up the chain to make the decision.
Yes.
That's where I'm going with this.
Yes.
Right? Hold that thought. We'll be back in a minute on Security Guy Radio. That's securityguyradio.com. Follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, and now Instagram. Back in a minute. Welcome back to Security Guy Radio. That's securityguyradio.com. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and now Instagram. Mr. Brian, you use Instagram, don't you? You do, right? I'm not sure I understand what the difference is. I have to take a picture of what? Me doing what? Standing around that's exciting to people or what?
That's what you normally do with Facebook.
Yeah, selfies.
Yeah, but I can't really write a story with Instagram. I'll have to come up with compelling content.
Yeah.
Perhaps I'll hold a IED and
It's
take a photograph and see what
Mostly for
happens.
food. What you're eating that day.
What you for food? Okay. You know what you got to
Oh,
do?
That's what everybody takes.
Oh, you know what I'm
pictures
gonna
of
do?
their Breakfast.
No,
Yeah,
my
that's
niece.
great.
My niece has a business called Sugar Bank.
Oh,
Look her up on Facebook, Sugar Bank. She makes the coolest, cupcakes and cakes and really very artistic. We need a Security Guy Radio cupcake. The logo will fit perfectly on top of it. That's what we'll do. All right. Then we'll take a picture of that on Instagram and have great success. All right. Back with our discussion of suspicious packages and bomb threat procedures with Jeremy Hall and Eric Mercado of Webster University and Professor Chris Silva. Okay, so we left off with the responsibility of the security guard and, how much role they play in that and how much role they should play in that. And,
Should the responsibility be more than the general public?
more? You mean,
Surely the general public is responsible as much as a security guard
No,
for
but-
suspicious packages.
but what the general public does is they assume it's all on the guard. They
Not
assume it's their job.
only in the US, I got to tell you. In the UK, that's not the case.
Well,
Everybody's looking for a suspicious package in London.
okay, so how do you
They're
start
still
to
doing it.
how do you start to change that culture? I mean, you can't change that culture here. Although, what you guys, I think you talked briefly about this. I think your procedure would work better if you had a floor warden program. You guys familiar with that? All right, so basically they call it floor warden. They call it, what else they call it, Chris?
Fire marshal.
Fire marshals or,
Yeah.
yeah. Did he hit you in the nose with the microphone? Okay. Medic.
He's
All
a
right.
Marine.
Oh, he's a Marine. That's right. That's right. Okay, so basically, let's say at Fox, we had the Fox Network Center, 5 stories. And we would say, Chris, you're floor 1, Jeremy, you're floor 2, Eric, floor 3, and so on. You were the floor warden. And when something went to hell in a handbasket, your job was to know what to do and guide people what to do, right? And that part of that was also for you to, wear a little orange hat and have a backpack and all that kind of fun stuff. But you really had to be the leadership role because in chaos, there is no leadership, really kind of falls apart, but you do have some kind of controlled ability to kind of, guide people what to do. So I think you got to involve people in the organization beyond security. People defer to security too much. Oh, the security guard's taking care of that. When in fact, Chris, you and I both know that the security guard hardly takes care of anything. And it turns out that's reality, right? So I like the idea that we need to do this, and I want to see if Paul and I can help you guys come up with a better way to maybe get it done, because I think it's necessary. We're very lucky in the United States that we haven't really had something like that. Should we tell some of our funny stories? Well, we'll go tell those funny stories after we talk about the procedures.
Yeah.
So procedure 1, you say, officers should ensure that they do not approach, touch, smell, or move the package in question. Right?
If the package has been deemed suspicious, if
But-
the package is open, empty, there's no smell, there's no wires, then it may be handled differently as an unattended. I think what the point was is wires are coming from it. There's a smell. You see some white crystallization from like a nitrodynamite. Water gel's busted open. At that point, then you may want to run that up the chain.
So should a guard get that close to it?
I don't think there's anything that says 5 feet or 20 feet or 30 feet.
Well, he
I
might
think,
bumble on it his patrol.
or he may run around the corner and it may be a backpack may be sitting around the corner and he gets a good view of it.
So I get this part. And we were trained on this in the police department a lot of bomb training. I went to classes on it and all that kind of stuff. And what was interesting was that what you described, most people would kind of figure out, right? A package with grease fingerprints on it, and it smells like diesel and, whatever that other thing is they put, But what if I told you that at the studio we might get something mailed to us, like a jar with a bunch of wires coming out of it? It's a suspicious package, but that has a biological component to it. So not all packages that are bombs look like bombs, by the way. In fact, most of them that go off don't look like a bomb. That's why it went off in the first place, because somebody didn't catch it, right?
Well, I would argue that a suspicious package is more about the environment that it's in than what it looks like.
That's right.
I mean, a bicycle bomb, okay, which was used in London a lot during with the IRA, you would look to see where that bicycle was chained up or parked. I mean, that's what you would look at. If you got a bicycle bomb in the middle, or a package in the middle of a area where there's no civilians or no pedestrians or whatever, you're not gonna find that suspicious, right?
Right.
In the middle of the desert, you're not gonna find it suspicious.
So it's situationally driven, it's environmentally driven. So those are two components that need to go into your training, because just like he said, a package at the Fox Network Center does not look suspicious. Why? Because we got about 500 packages a day. And trying to figure that out, which one was suspicious or not suspicious, was quite a challenge. We had x-ray machines and so on, but we often only x-rayed something that, the mail clerk thought might be a little different. So good point. But again, that's not just the security guard. That's the mailroom clerk. That's the guy that makes the deliveries through the mail cart, a different employee, right? That's the secretary that receives the package. Because maybe two guys missed it, and she gets it and says, wait a minute, it says caution bomb on it. Maybe I better do something about that. And I'm not half joking. Because remember that script the guy mailed?
Oh, in the landmine.
Yeah. So we get a package that looks suspicious. Take it down to the X-ray machine, and by gosh, it's a Claymore mine.
Now it's from South Africa, by the way.
Sent from South Africa, and it was a Claymore mine inside a package. And now we think we got a bomb. And it turns out the guy was trying to sell a script to Fox about some military thing, and he thought it was a great idea to send that as a prop, and it scared the crap out of the whole studio. And
we closed down. Closed down half the studio.
Closed half the place down.
Yeah.
And then what was that other one we had? Where they put it next to the gas transportation.
We had and this goes into security officer training right now.
These guys are pretty trained at Fox.
Fox,
by the way.
we used to really train them. Okay, but you go from training to panic at some point. Okay, so somebody delivers a package. It's ticking. The officer doesn't know what to do with it, so he places it next to the gas station at the studio.
Right next to the gas pumps. Brilliant idea, right? And that went on for hours. And then we're getting a little ahead of your paper here, but of course the police came in. And what happens when the police come in? It's the police's decision now. And just so happened that area next to the gas station was also next to the transmission or feed, the satellite farm, for the live broadcast facility. And they wanted to shut the whole place down. The police wanted to take over the whole studio and say we're evacuating everybody. And we're going into broadcast time for live shows back east. We can't do it, right? That turned out to be a package of toys that some executive had shipped to his office that he was going to surprise his kids with. And there was some kind of wind-up, remember that wind-up thing?
Yeah.
Clock or something in there going
Which
tick,
was
tick, tick,
ticking.
tick, tick. Yeah, it was ticking. You could hear it clear as a bell, right? So identification, as you point out, is good, but I think it has to involve other people in that chain, right? The number two, you say the package should be isolated and the area should be assessed for other suspicious indicators. Now, this is a good point because, as we just discovered, the guy isolated it, but then he moved it. That was a bad idea. Probably just left it alone because when somebody's an expert that comes in, he's going to look at that package within the environment it was found. And if I remove it from the environment and take it down the street somewhere, it doesn't have the same context and it doesn't mean the same thing, right? So I think your procedure needs to include it. You're right. They just keep that in there. And then you hear you say, from that point, the officer's job is to halt any employees or occupants coming in and out of the immediate area. So I think that's agreeable.
Yeah. So basically set up a cordon of the area, whatever feet you deem. And, going back to the ticking, I also did some research, and there was a guy picked up a package, took it to the police department, said, here, I found this, and lays it on the desk sergeant's desk. So
we got a better story than that.
Yeah, I've got a very good, much better.
Do you want to tell that story?
I'll tell the story.
Okay,
so,
he'll tell his version, but
so one of our directors, security directors, receives a suspicious-looking package. So the studio didn't have an X-ray machine at the time, so they took it to one of our facilities that had an X-ray machine, which just happened to be
a live TV station. So he drove a bomb from a film studio. He drove it 10 miles to a TV station.
So eventually I got called, and I've seen some live ones, and I looked at the X-ray and went, getting blown up or calling the PD and closing the station, because that once the PD looked at this, they would evacuate the station, right?
Going to be a long night.
Yeah.
Well, on the
It
station,
was a long night,
Yeah.
and there's a good video of me walking up and down the street, holding my head and just sort of going, "Where is my career just gone?"
I thought for sure you were fired. that day.
Yes,
But
I
you
did.
survived.
I survived.
Yeah, it costs about during a prime time thing like X Files. It costs you $125,000 a minute to stay on
it's
the
a
air.
nightmare.
So if you're off the air for an hour, you just lost a lot of money, right?
So what I was reading about bomb threats, they were talking about how a lot of the people that do it, what they're after is just to disrupt your business for you. So
That's right.
Like you just said, your stories support that. Just
Now, frankly, if you say there's a bomb, I'm not as concerned as you calling up and saying I'm driving down there to shoot everybody. Right? How many bombs have gone off in the United States?
Well, that's the new trend now, the shootings and the...
Right. I mean, that's really more easily done, by the way, and easily accomplished, except for perhaps people in the military that have some background experience. The average guy,
It's a lot easier to pick up a gun than it is to go make
right.
and find material to make that device.
Yeah. So I think that's a good point you make is that, and we'll talk about this after the break, some of the research we did on this, because after 9/11 we were very concerned we were going to get blown up, and it turns out we weren't going to get blown up. Now, number 4, you say the entire floor should be evacuated at a minimum with an end goal of evacuating the entire building. This is problematic because it all comes down in businesses, unfortunately still, to what? Making money. If you start evacuating the building every day and that interrupts the business and now the business loses money and can't keep you employed, it's problematic. And it's really a tough call at the evacuation thing, right? And so what a lot of times the bomb experts do is they kind of go on stats, they kind of go on the environment, procedures, and and then you and I say, okay, LAPD, let you guys handle it so we don't get sued in case something goes wrong. Back in a minute on Security Guy Radio. That's securityguyradio.com. Follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, and now the Instagram. Back in a minute. Welcome back to Security Guy Radio. That's securityguyradio.com with Chuck Harrell, Paul Bristow, and our guest from Webster University, Mr. Jeremy Hall, Marine, and Eric Mercado, Air Force, and Chris Silva, Army. That's right, Army. Gentlemen, we left off at the break. We kind of got through your procedures. Now, give me your idea on who beyond the security guard is going to make these calls on whether that's a bomb, whether we evacuate. I know the guard is kind of participating, but really, in your opinion, who should make those decisions?
Well, hopefully a shift supervisor, a watch commander, I'm not going to say the chief security officer is going to be there 24/7. Some type of supervisor may come down and make the call either to the police or whatever the next line is as far as that goes. And then I would assume once a police officer comes on scene or a bomb tech or whatever it may be, then they'll make the further decision whether, like we talked about, evacuating the building or an airport terminal or whatever it may be at that point.
Eric, you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree that somebody, the CSO, even the CSO could be the one, or his deputy, or someone, be the one to make the decision. Someone trained in those roles.
Does it have to be in in corporate environment? Is it always a security personnel that makes those decisions?
I think it's important that probably a security person does it. I mean, maybe they would go out and get some guidance maybe from the CEO or something like that, or somebody, management or operations manager, see how it would affect them, and you get guidance from them and go out to them and so they can make their decision.
One of the beauties of technology now is being able to transmit a photographic image of something suspicious immediately, real time, to someone who does have that ability to make that determination, and then being able to articulate that to the decision maker who can make real business decisions almost real time, instantly. And I think that we need to take that into account, that we're able to do that on the fly at this point.
I suppose it depends on what industry it is, right?
Well,
what decisions made.
I think, in my
Do we think
experience,
that?
my experience is limited to
It is limited.
studios and 150 contract clients, and so I've been around major corporations that I service through contracts, right? And I got to tell you, I can't think of one incident where the security department internally, or the contracted security department, or the director, or the CSO had any say-so whatsoever in anything to do with a major security event. They got the information together, they packaged it, they made recommendations, right, up the chain of command, and they made some internal decisions that didn't immediately affect the rest of the company.
Actually, my story earlier on was my decision, and that was the worst thing about it.
Well, no, but eventually,
Because I couldn't find anybody else to make that decision.
yeah, but eventually the station manager came in and made a different decision on it. Remember?
No, the PD evacuated.
Oh, on the one with the ticking one. Yeah. So usually, it's fraught with problems if the security person says, "Okay, we're evacuating the building, but we're on the air right now with Fox Sports." Well, we're doing it anyway. Well, no, we're not going to do it. So really, what you guys have to have is a comprehensive plan that involves other people, and collectively, you guys make a decision. Because just because you say it looks suspicious, it is suspicious, there may be somebody with a higher level of knowledge that says it's not, and they make a business decision. And I'm not trying to say we trade money for people's lives, obviously, right? But you got to think about that. So what say you?
So your theory, or from your history, from your experience, would be executive could make that decision.
Executives will make those decisions, right?
Okay.
So let's say I'm a contract guard company and the owner is my client. I'm not going to evacuate that guy's business. That ain't going to happen. He's not going to let me. And I'll get fired if I do.
So then the security folks are just making, I guess, a recommendation, and they're going to act on it.
Observe and report, gather information, being accurate. Those are important components.
Well,
Having experience.
I think it also depends on what your position is within the company from a respect point of view. I mean, does that chief, whoever the chief executive officer is, do they actually respect your point of view? If they don't, then you're probably not going to get the response that you want, and that comes from having degrees and your experience and all the rest of the stuff that comes into it. But I think that's a big part.
Oh, I think it's huge, and they may well respect your opinion, but they still may make an alternative decision that, well, how many executives have apologized to us to say, I know that's what you think, but we're going to do this, right? Yeah, that's ultimately their call. So your plan, I think, needs a step 5, which is before you're contacted, well, maybe simultaneously with the police, depending on the situation, you're going to have to contact, really C-level people. A bomb's a big thing, all right? A bomb's not a guy tripped and fall. Call HR. So you're going to get some C-level people in there, owners, to say, here's what we got. And make sure that that security guard is trained, more importantly, in recognition. He needs to be trained in accurate reporting.
I mean, what are you going to do before you send out? Are you going to pull video? How long's that bag been there? Has somebody just put it there, or has it been there for 3 days?
Right.
So if it's been there for 3 days, then the urgency isn't really there, right?
It's a great point.
If somebody's just put it there and walked off or run off, then you might have a problem.
Right. That's situational, environmental. It means something differently. So you have to be accurate, and this is where most security people fall into problems, that they don't report accurately. There's a whole different statement between, I have a bomb here, and I have a backpack that's been here for 3 days. 2 different things. One's true, one's an assumption, right? So I think in your procedures, some of the training might be, let's teach people how to report things as they are. What are you looking at? I'm looking at a phone. It appears to be a Samsung phone. It appears to be an S4. It's got a black battery case on it, and it's been sitting here for 2 days. That's all I need to know, and all I need to report, right?
Well, that's why planning and training are key.
Training's always the most important thing. Always the most important thing. That's right.
And that's, what we read for bomb threats as well, not to jump around too much, but, you get a bomb threat on the phone, the guard or whoever it may be needs to be as detailed as possible on what the person said, what the intention is, the details, like you said.
Now, that's kind of an easy one. And by the way, I'm going to treat somebody calling in and saying there's a bomb almost the same as a package is, that somebody ran in, dropped a backpack off, and ran away. You got to treat them the same, right? You got to
exactly.
But that's not so difficult, Paul, because remember we had like a bomb checklist, and the guy has it next to the phone, and you pick it up. What is your name? Where are you calling from? And you go through that list.
Here's one right here.
Talk. There you go. Yeah. Homeland Security. So if you go through those things, that part will gather the information you need to feed it up to somebody who makes a decision. And you got to have urgency in all this, right? You got to get people off their stick. And the other thing we need to talk about is the decision-making process. Like, let's say you did have a lot of decision-making process at Fox. I mean, you could make some high-level decisions on things, but it wasn't based on just what the guard said, right?
No. Again, you've got that, the package. Let's see the video. How long's it been there, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, you're making a risk assessment.
It all goes into that decision.
Yeah, and I like to talk to the guy that found it directly, get first-hand information, ask him questions, keep going.
Now, the good thing was that we worked for people that would ask those questions. So when you pushed it up to those executives, I mean, they were intelligent people, you know. They wouldn't just say, oh, it's a bomb here, let's evacuate. They would ask those questions. And you better have the answers as a security executive.
So we had an incident where we had to make a decision after 9/11. Paul called me up and said, hey, I got a problem. I think we're going to get blown up. Everybody thought the studios were a target because of our culture and our movies. And I think that movie came out with Denzel Washington about the terrorist thing in New York. Remember, we had people protesting that. It was just really difficult to deal with. And the decision had to be made. What's our risk, right? So making these risks ahead of time, as you suggested, right, getting people together, building programs and procedures helps speed up the process to make the decision. So Paul calls me up one day and says, hey, Rot, I need to find out how many actual bombs have gone off in a package and how many people have delivered bombs to TV stations and are pip cheerio. Get on that right away. Remember that?
Yes.
Was it a good accent, by the way?
No, it was terrible.
Okay, anyway.
I liked it.
But at least people can understand me better than your accent. So what I found was interesting. Help me on the numbers here. I can't remember, but we at that time used a search engine we had, and we kind of, it wasn't Google back then. We Googled it, and we wanted to find TV stations plus bombs plus packages. There wasn't one.
It was basically zero. Yeah.
There was not one incident out of, I think there was 900 stories that I looked in newspaper. I searched newspaper archives. We had access to that. I couldn't find one that said a TV station had ever been attacked or blown up. 900 stories and over years, 9-10 years. So our decision-making process that went from, boy, we're a target because we're a studio, which is an assumption, to we've never actually been a target. And that makes my decision to take a bomb that I think is a bomb and do something differently with it, right?
Exactly.
So what say you about that process? Do you think that, I didn't see this in your paper, but do you think we should have some intel recon / intelligence gathering about your organization before this happens, right? Because if you're the corner, liquor store and somebody calls a bomb to it, and probably, he might not be a target unless you know ahead of time from your research that this guy that runs the liquor store has a background problem, right? What do you think, Eric? You take that one.
Yeah, I think it's all, that's part of the planning. So you're going out and getting information, probably pinging the police, maybe the FBI, Homeland Defense right now to get that information so that you can be prepared for it if the event happens. So I think it's important to do that.
Yeah, and I think it can be done.
And I think that the SOC kind of concept where you're bringing together things into a fusion center, even on a limited degree, but constantly taking a look at intelligence and analyzing what the new threats are. In the case of a studio, maybe a new movie's coming out that's controversial. Got to take that into consideration, before it's released, and then subsequently afterwards. Always staying abreast of what's new in your corporation and your industry.
Tell me about your dog experience. You were a dog handler, right?
Yes, yeah.
So were you sent out to look for drugs or bombs or both?
I was an explosive trainer, instructor, handler in Iraq with a bomb dog. So roadside bombs, packages. We went to bomb threats, high schools, Walmarts.
You might not have an exact number, but just give me a rough idea. You're in a war zone. People are trying to kill you. That's their job, is to go kill you, blow you up. How many, in a year, how many bomb threat calls did you go on, and how many turn out to be bombs?
So overseas in country, it's not so much bomb threats. That's more stateside. But we would get because we're a little bit different than EOD, which is like the bomb squad for the military.
Right.
If something's suspicious, EOD goes. So if I see something suspicious, something hanging out of it on the side of the road, why would I search it with my dog and risk that? So that's the mindset.
Well,
we have guys that are trained to do that. So we would look for weapons caches in the ground, football field size of mortars, rifles, and then also roadway searches were our big one, where we'd stop a convoy, get out in front, and put a dog on a 30-foot leash and get in front of the Humvee and go, have lunch out. And
okay, so somebody changed my question. In a war zone, then, how much did you find as opposed to not find?
We found a substantial amount. There was
50% was a hit.
I would say close to, yeah, especially.
Okay.
I would say you're right on.
So here we have the environmental situation, the situational awareness. You're in a war zone. You're expecting to find things. You do find things. If we go back to a average business, a school, university, bomb threat. Okay. And I'm not saying we have to just ignore it because the guy wants to get out of a test, right? Which happened at my daughter's university before the summer session. But I think you have to look at that and consider that as a possible.
And I also read a few articles where security guards were fired. They, for example, just not to pick on security guards, but they were fired.
Well, that's what we do here.
Or they weren't happy and they called in, or
Yeah.
one security guard called his own bomb threat in. It made it like to where he was the hero, and it's just
Yeah,
So
it
you see
scares
a lot
people.
yeah,
It scares
it
people.
does.
We're not used to that in this country. Whereas in England, things blow up all the time, and it's not as
Yeah, not so much now, but
yeah, but it was
used to.
big time when the alleged IRA was doing
Yeah.
that, allegedly. Back in a minute on Security Guy Radio. That's securityguy.radio.com. Follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, and Instagram. Welcome back to Security Guy Radio. That's securityguy.radio.com with Chuck Harrell, Paul Bristow, and our Webster University graduate students, Jeremy Hall and Eric Mercado, talking about suspicious package and bomb threat procedures. I said that better, didn't I?
Yes.
Yes,
Good.
I seem to be becoming more lucid as the time goes by. All right, we kind of left off with bringing in people to help with that. We talked about your dog experience, which was interesting. I'm pleased to say that the Burbank Post Office, about once a month, I see him on the way to breakfast on the weekend early. I see him out in the parking lot with dogs and a whole bunch of personnel checking packages and stuff. So I think this stuff is going on. And places do have bomb machines. Remember, we bought a little dustbuster vacuum, kind of like
Yeah,
bomb
it's great.
detector
Well,
device.
I
And so you'd wipe something down, put it in the machine. It could give you a residue reading.
Did you ever use them?
We've
in
used
your
some residue detectors, like kits,
Yeah.
to pick up
Yeah.
like chlorates
Similar
or
sort of thing.
They're pretty
Yeah.
accurate.
yeah.
And, we would handle our guns and then test them, and they worked good.
Mhm.
And the other one was the air. You could actually take an air sample within a closed container, and it was pretty accurate.
Well, very quick story as to being a dog handler as to why we ended up with him. Because after 9/11, we had all these dogs on the studio, and all I would hear from executives was, "Why are we paying for those dogs to play?" Because they'd be playing every 20 minutes or whatever
Oh.
it was.
And they're
And
searching.
We had to find an area for them to play in, and then I finally had enough of it and bought those machines.
25 grand a piece
Yeah.
back then.
Yes.
So the dog program went away.
The dog program went away because people don't want to see dogs playing when they're paying for them.
And then we broadcast
Yeah.
the Super Bowl out of there, so we would have dogs come in and check all that stuff. It works. It's peace of mind.
It's a deterrent, and
Yeah.
it does work. Yeah.
Well, another thing about your procedures, really, you have to have these because if you don't have them, you're going to get sued because you didn't do anything. You tried not. You didn't try, right? So
The family will hire a lawyer that's going to look at your policies and procedures,
right.
and they're going to say, "Hey, why wasn't this in there?"
But to that point, if you violate your own policy and procedure, you could be liable for negligence, right? So you
Exactly.
can't make the policies and procedures so difficult that the guard can't succeed. Because once he fails his own policy, he's on the hook for it. Right?
So what's your recommendation on training guards in this area? I mean, do you have packages? Do you bring them in and look at that sort of stuff?
I mean,
Or do you just do it
maybe
in
it's
the
kind
classroom?
maybe it's the kind of training you had, something similar.
Yeah, I think now as far as time-wise, once a month, once a quarter, spot checks, I would call it. Come in and do a spot check. Your initial training could be done when they first get hired, when they come on. And then after that, like a spot check. Hey, tomorrow I want to see you and another employee, and we're going to run through some drills, maybe some current, like you said, intel. Some things change all the time with intel briefs, current events, and this is what we're looking for now compared to 2 years ago.
Maybe a quarterly reoccurring training.
So how do you pay for this? Which is always a good
The
question.
company's going to pay for it.
What company?
It's a magic money tree
Oh,
back at the corporation.
Fox is going to pay for it.
Well, okay, but what about the 900,000 other businesses in the United States that actually really run the economy, not the big corporations? They don't have that kind of money. What do we do with them?
What about if we have an inside trainer that works for the company that could just pull them aside for
Who's going to pay for that trainer?
Well,
the company will pay for the
no,
trainer.
a big corporation, might squeeze that money out.
Yeah, Fox. I mean, the studios.
But the
a
average
lot of
size
companies
business, in the United States, and I'm rusty on this, the average size business employs, 5.5 employees and makes it,
I mean,
those
it
sort of
might need
people.
to be a deterrent to lawsuits because if you think about it, if you don't do a procedure, you don't do anything, you get sued. So you're saying, you're making an investment, taking it out of overhead, so to deter a lawsuit, possibly.
Good point, but a standard of care argument would be, I've never had any bombs going off at businesses in the United States. Why should I have a bomb procedure? It hasn't happened. Where the standard of care in England is, they go off all the time. You better have something.
Exactly. Yeah.
Chris, what do you think?
But I think that dividing that cost over the source of the entire spread of a contract security service, so that everyone pitches in a little bit and derives a little bit of the same benefit.
Yeah, but what contract security company would do that? I mean, that most contract security companies squeeze every single penny out. They're not going to bring anybody on that they absolutely don't need it.
But I'm saying that the trainer that's already in place can absorb some of that knowledge and share it amongst
If they've
those
got a
folks.
trainer, if that contract security company's got a trainer, which, I mean, how do you, you work for a super duper contract security company that has all that, but most companies don't, right?
I imagine, but we've got to then, as professionals, reach out and make ourselves aware so that we can fill that void, so that those guards get that training, whether it's from a certified professional or someone who just takes an interest in the well-being of the company.
Now, that I agree with, and that might be handled budget-wise at the state level where states license guards. BSIS in California. For example, in Kentucky, you don't need a license to have a guard company or be a guard. So there are no training standards there. But in California, the BSIS has a module for bombs.
Actually, I was just going to ask that. Did you look at the BSIS training when you was,
No,
putting
sir,
this
I didn't
together?
go over that in the
I
research.
did go to
no.
the site, but I didn't see anything training.
Yeah, they have them. Cal Sega is a
Well,
better
they've got
place.
a WMD one, but I don't know whether they've actually got a suspicious package one, have they?
No, they do as a elective module. They do.
Right,
Really?
WMD is a requirement to
get
as
your
far
license.
as the
Yeah.
the 8 hours, right?
So there's something the state should do. So maybe your paper might be fine-tuned to present this at a state level for training requirements. So therefore, the guard walks in the door with something that's effective.
Great point. That's a great point.
And then you just do incremental small training every day at briefing. All right, fellas, I want you to go out and find. I put a package in the building. I want you to go find it. Not right now. Just as you're walking around today, we're looking for a green wallet, and it's an observe and report exercise that costs not one penny, because they're just walking around doing their duties, and you're not going to say it's a bomb. You're just going to teach them to observe and report, and get them in the habit. And once they do it, it gets muscle memory, right? Meaning the big thick muscle in between their ears. They remember it and they get it done. So just an idea.
Actually, to piggyback on that, as a military police, at nighttime patrolling, you get a little bored on the base. There's not a lot going on. So what was happening is some of the military police guys weren't going to their checkpoints.
No.
So our staff sergeant would put out a note in a building somewhere, and he would see if you would observe it when you're supposed to be at the checkpoint.
Oh, good point.
Kind of to catch up on
See
it,
how
yeah.
simple it is? No technology, old
Yeah.
school, right?
Yep.
Let me ask you a question. I noticed in here you have a lot of things like, guards shall do this, must do this. And we talked briefly about how you got to make your procedures obtainable. And shall and must are mandatory. And if he doesn't do it, he's in trouble. But should and may are discretionary. Lets the guard make a decision. Do you think that a guard really can be compelled or told to, go back in the building and watch that package? Or can the guard be required to place himself in jeopardy? If he thinks that's a bomb, why can't he just run outside and get in the parking lot like everybody else should? Can you compel an employee to place himself in jeopardy?
That's a difficult question. To
It
answer.
is.
I
That's
mean,
why we're here
very
on the radio.
difficult. So, I think if that person is, I know it's difficult because pays low and all this other stuff. But if an individual is truly a security professional, and he wants to maintain his employment, he's going to do it. But if he's into taking care of himself, he's probably going to leave.
So, isn't a security professional that's alive and able to give you information at briefing at the parking lot command post better than the guy that's dead because he said, "Hey, what's this? Is this a bomb?" and picks it up or stands there, does something dumb? Just a question. We ask the questions on the show. That's what we do. You just have to think about that because there's very few things in the law that compel people to place yourself in jeopardy or act, right? So a parent-child, you have an absolute duty as a parent to protect that child. It doesn't matter what. Well, I know they were running in the street, but I couldn't do anything about it. Wrong, right? But, Paul, do you think I'm right about that? Telling an employee,
No,
I want you to stand by this package. It might be a bomb and don't move. I don't think you can fire him for that if he says I'm not going to do it either, right?
Well, at that point, like going back to we talked about it, at that point you would think the package is suspicious, so you would want to get out of the area. I don't think you're going to tell your employees stand on top of this package. It's got a bunch of wires hanging out of it.
No, but you might tell him to put it in the car and drive it to a TV station.
Well, I didn't tell him.
I know you didn't tell him. He told himself. All right, Paul, you had another question you were talking about. You wanted to ask something, huh?
You know, it's slightly off subject, really, but, you know, looking at your experiences, both of you, I'm just wondering if you've got any ideas as to why we haven't seen international terrorism hit in the U.S. in this form. I mean, obviously we've seen domestic terrorism, you know, from IEDs, but we haven't really seen the international side. I'm just wondering if you've got any ideas why that hasn't occurred.
So for international, you said, or
no, international on U.S. soil. Why haven't we seen any international terrorists hitting U.S. soil in this form?
That's a great question. I'm surprised myself. As far as explosives, I haven't seen any as either, but as like anthrax, there's other things that are happening here. I'll be honest with you. I'm surprised we haven't seen IEDs here. V-beds in a car on the side of the road.
I think they're coming. I think it's going to happen.
I hate to say it, but
we got about a minute left, and I want to get your thoughts now. So we've had this discussion, great discussion. Thought of a lot of things, made a lot of good points. Would you change anything differently in your paper now? Would you put something else in there? What would it be?
Like we talked about, I would have probably implemented more outside of the security realm, like you said, management, executive, thought about outside the box as far as making decisions
Bring other
for
people
the company.
in
Yeah,
to the decision-making
I would have
process.
put that in there.
Yeah, I mean, I think
myself.
the procedures are good, the intention's good, the motivation's good, but I think we're just going to fine-tune a little bit and bring other people into the process to make it work better.
Yep.
Now, Mr. Eric, what say you? This is your chance to up your grade by saying 10 more words.
So what I was thinking about was that the bigger audience for it, because you were talking about earlier about responsibility, who has responsibility, not only the guards. So open it up to more of the staff of the company, their learning and training of the bomb threat process, suspicious package process.
And I like the daily incremental small training. Putting a note saying, go find a note today, looking at that kind of stuff. I think that's important, you know. Well, good show, Mr. Bristow.
Yes.
Chris, gentlemen, thanks for coming in. That
Thank
wraps
you.
up our second edition with Webster University.
I'm glad it didn't implode.
Tune in. That's true. Tune in next week for another version of Security Guy Radio. That's securityguyradio.com.
It's third edition.
Third edition. Oh, thank you, Engineer Brian. Thank you very much. Our third edition of Security Guy Radio. Follow us on.
Who's giving us the free fingers?
I didn't finish my follow us thing. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube, and Instagram. See you next Monday.